lot about storytelling. Stories are used for selling, yeah? Video stories, online stories, digital stories, ads. People are using stories. My son, who's in the advertising business, he's a smoker. You heard about him last week, right? So he does a lot of storytelling on video. So stories are used there. Stories are used in building organizations, for team building, in corporations, in communities. If you want to build communities, if you live those stories, you build those stories, if you tell the stories correctly, then people gel together, come together, become an organic, growing community because of the stories that live there. Stories also inspire. I've just come back from India, working in Hyderabad at Bangalore, and I taught CEOs how to tell stories. Short, quick stories, not those elaborate movies like Inception or Deception, no? None of those. But quick stories which kind of leave a mark on you. What happens when you tell a story? Because stories have no geometrical shape, they don't have data or PowerPoint presentations or bullet point 1 or 2, people become intrigued and engaged just by the fact that it's like cotton candy. And you start attaching your own memories to my story. So now if you might have lied in your past somewhere, or maybe somebody gave you a slap, that story in your life becomes alive. Thus, it gets embedded deeper into your memory. That's the part of the story. Now, how does one tell a story? That's the question, right? Well, we all know the once upon a time in a happily ever after story. Stories are very complex, or can be very simple, no? But here's my formula. Number one, if your audience doesn't know the context, that means they don't know the setting, they don't know the culture or the background or the landscape, quickly describe the landscape. Pio del Pilar, right behind Makati Medical Square, a small slum, like many of the slums in the Philippines. Maybe 200 people living there and their daily wages less than 500 pesos. A quick context for people who don't know the context. The story of Alma or Alba, Emma, the woman who has a little stress. No? So you build a story, define the character. Now, if you can put up the picture, it's fine. But if you have no pictures, living without pictures, you create the picture. Did you see my dad? Did you see my dad? Did I describe him? No? Alright. So I didn't describe him, but you have an image of him. How did he look? Right. What was he wearing? Okay, did you see the marketplace in Pune? Yeah? So you create those pictures very quickly. Actually, sometimes depending on the time and resources you have, the sharper your character, the better the story. But sometimes you leave it for the audience to understand because their dad comes up. You didn't see my dad, you saw your own dad. Many of you did, right? Yeah. So character, context, character, some kind of a conflict, some kind of a challenge, some kind of issue where what happened? How did the chiku come up? Where was the chiku coming from? Some kind of a challenge in there, yeah? And a little emotional conflict. Now, in this story that I told you about me stealing a chiku, I didn't tell you the truth because I left it upon you to figure out what happened. Did you guys guess that I stole the story? That I stole the chiku? You did? Yeah? Well, so I left it unsaid, but you got it, right? So that's the part. So the conflict, the challenge, and in the usual hero saving a damsel in distress kind of a story, there's a little bit of a conquest. In this case, there was no conquest on my part as a chiku stealer. It was a conquest or a victory on the part of my dad who taught me a lesson. Yeah? So the hero of the story was not me, but was my dad because he taught me a good lesson. I was a villain. Did you see that? No, I was a hero too because today, 50 years later, I'm telling the story, thus I'm a hero. So that's how storytelling goes. Number one, create a context very quickly. You can use any medium. Digital, books, written, spoken. Spoken is the easiest because it's the oldest form of storytelling. No? So context, character, quickly, some kind of a challenge, some kind of a conflict. A little bit of an aha moment. Recognizing that that's tonight's theme. No? A little bit of an aha moment. Hey, I mustn't steal anymore. Right? a dozen chicos is 12, it's not 13, something like that. A little bit of an aha moment. And then the conquest, post the conquest celebration. That means today I'm a living proof of honesty. That kind of a celebration. So that's how you tell stories, or that's how you create stories. This is a simple form of a story. Up here on stage, as Toastmasters or as speakers or pitchers, your storytelling has to be faster, it has to be more precise, it has to be related to what the audience knows, and somehow prove the subject matter. So if you're going to do bullet points, like 5 bullet points, it's nice to throw in a story at the beginning, a couple in the middle, and maybe a nice one at the end, like the one you did. So that's what storytelling is all about, in a nutshell. Does that make sense? And now I asked for 10 or 15 minutes. Well, I used up 10, so I hope for 5 more minutes. Questions? Then I tell you one more story. Yes, sir. Hi.
Whenever we talk, every speech has its background.
Has what?
Has its background.
A speech has a background?
Yeah.
Context, yeah?
So whenever you're gonna drawing a context, do you mean it's just the backwalk?
Sorry?
Backwalk. Suppose I'll be going to you. You didn't get me. I'm talking about whenever I'm perceiving what I'm going to make people learn. So I get it early in my brain. Based on that, I'm spinning my context to people. Did you mean this?
No, not how you came about to the story, but a little bit of the landscape, the setting, the scenario, that kind of a context. So that the story that you're going to tell, the story starts with a character or a certain issue. So when you build the setting and the scenario, they have an understanding of the character. So even if the character or the conflict has loose ends, because of the context they fit it in, not how you got to the story. So you don't give in data, it's not an overview, it's slightly different. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, that's good. Alright. I'm getting it. Not about others.
Alright, okay. Any more? How to tell a story, or the power behind the story?
Actually, Raju, I have a boss. My boss in the office.
Yeah.
He likes to tell a lot of stories, but it's more of to entertain people rather than to make a lessons thing. Is it a good idea? I mean, usually you would make lessons out of whatever teachings you want to mentor, but his style is more of just to entertain his subordinates.
Well, see, look, in my opinion, no, all kinds of conversations, spoken, written, or even virtual, they need to have a purpose. All of it. All of them have a purpose. Even entertainment is a purpose. It's to relax you, to build rapport with you. That's the purpose, no? So, as long as the storyteller, as long as the speaker, or the one who's starting the conversation knows the purpose, knows the kind of influence and impact it will have, then it's okay. So if I'm just going to tell fun stories, but my objective is to relax you, make you happy, fine. If my objective is to make you invest $1 million in my idea, then that's my purpose. Yeah? It is nice to have a good purpose, you know. I mean, sure, the bigger the challenge, the nicer your presentation has to be. Yes, so the point is, all of your stories, whatever you create, whether it's online, written, or spoken, sometimes when people stand up to talk, they have a lot of mixed messages in their story, and they don't know. It's nice to focus upon a singular message at a time with a single story. Those of you who were here last week, Saturday, during the contest, the speaker I evaluated, Dr. somebody, did you notice it? Yeah? He had lots of mixed messages. I didn't tell him that as an evaluator, but he had lots of mixed messages in 7 minutes. You need to stay on one path with one story, one message, one game, no? Yeah. That's very important. At the back of your mind, you must know where you're going. So it's kind of a chaotic, intriguing kind of a journey. It's like a treasure hunt where all of us participate, but we are going in one direction. So as a storyteller, you are this invisible guide, shepherd towards one goal. Yes, Bob?
I was thinking about storytelling and the elevator speech. Do you have any suggestions on that?
Well, see, the elevator pitch.
Right.
It's supposed to be like 60 seconds or 90 seconds, no? And she did a great job, by the way. That was what was going through my mind when she came up and she said, I'm going to pitch, no? And she started right, no? Now, she took up 15 minutes. That's not a pitch anymore. That's a presentation. A pitch is less than 120 seconds. You can start, because let's see what are the elements of a pitch. The pitch, you must have an idea. It must be irrefutable. You must be convincing, and you must not be lying in your pitch. So there are 5. Let's say let's go with 5. Now, when I talk about, I teach sales. When I talk about using story for pitching, you do a little heart-wrenching story, but do it very quickly. You can go like, I saw Emma on the street, a woman who makes less than 500 pesos, and she died on the spot. And I have an idea to save her life and lives of people like her. So this is the guy who's your investor standing right next to you, and he goes, ow, right? Then you walk out the elevator. So you told the story, but it's a very quickie. You get it? Then you get it, right? So you're just going for the heart and dropping it there. That's a pitch. Because pitch, the elevator pitch doesn't allow you more than 120 seconds. So when you do a sales pitch or a sales call, you have to go for the gut. Go for the jugular right away and capture his greed, maybe capture the investor's value system, whatever. You've got to realize that, recognize that this is what the guy might be. Let me just drop this bait, this emotional bait, and let me walk out, and then see if he asks me a question. Then I can make the rest of the presentation. Okay? It's very subtle. You got it, right, Tim? Yeah? So quickly, here's the story. Are you done? Yeah? You can ask me questions later. So in 19th century Jerusalem, there were 2 beautiful women, beauty queens, really beautiful. But as time was passing by, they were aging. Their beauty began to sag. Not a nice word, but they got together and they said, hey Emma, and Aaron goes, oh yo, Alma, what's the deal? You know what? It's been a while since people appreciated our beauty. Let's go and check out if we're still good in the marketplace. So both of them step out and they go up to High Street in Fort Bonifacio in Jerusalem. Yeah. Okay, right, this is the beginning of High Street. At the end of it, let's walk and see if people glance at us, see if guys will whistle at that, and see if Bob gets up and throws some flowers at us, So, number 1, number 2. Let's call her Emma and Alma. Yeah? Alma says, Emma, you go first. Let's not give them any names. Let's call them 1 and 2. You go first. So the first one goes out and she walks High Street. And Bob doesn't look, Wilson doesn't look, even Nelson, the other Wilson doesn't look. And she gets really mad. She comes back and then she becomes a little more daring than before. So she removes some of her stuff and then she walks down High Street. And this time Bob glances but he turns away because she's a little more daring than before. And remember, she's aging. Wilson goes into Starbucks and Nelson goes and talks to his wife and doesn't look behind. Now she gets really desperate. So she removes a little bit more. You can let your imagination run. Yeah, a little bit more. And she walks down High Street. This time people pull down shutters. Bang! Mothers hide the faces of the kids. Dogs hide away everyone and they become happy. And she comes back to number 2 and she says, oh my God, I don't think things are working anymore for us. What do we do? Then number 2 says, I turn. Ako muna. They spoke Tagalog even though they were Jewish people. And other one she wears a red skirt and puts some jingle bells and puts some flowers and has a parrot sitting on her shoulder. And she puts some anklets from India, she borrows from Shireen. And then she walks down High Street and there's a jingle, jangle, music sounds, and people start singing and looking. Bob comes out from Nike shoes, running from the Nike shoe shop. Wilson forgets his coffee and Nelson starts talking to his wife and they pay attention to number 2. And they go, wow, how beautiful you are. Maganda. What's the word in Italian? Bellissima, whatever, mashallah in Muslim or Islamic. And then at the end of the story, the question, quickly, if you were to name these two beauties, what would you name them? If you were given the opportunity to name these two beauties, what would you name them? Quickly! Hurry up, thumbs up. One on the left, the one who became more and more bold with every step, was known as truth. The one on the right, with jingle bells and anklets and birds and bees and butterflies around her, was known as story. The bolder you get with the truth, people refuse it. You have to wrap it in a story to make it sweet. Good evening.